Yeah, Mickey Loomis of the New Orleans Saints. You want to trade up with the Vikings? All right, we'll take that deal, but I need another fifth-round pick thrown in there for good measure. We're working the phones today on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Ooh-wee!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. You can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Let's talk about some draft trades. So there was a rumor that came out from, I think it was Tony Pauline of Pro Football Network, that the Saints and Steelers are looking to move up and that the Vikings are in conversations, right? Have laid the groundwork for a draft day trade, which is usually how this stuff goes. You'll call way ahead of time and say, hey, we're interested in trading up. What would the deal be? And then we'll decide if we're pushing the button in the moment, so that you're not like negotiating a trade in the middle of your on the clock for 10 minutes, right? So, that's interesting. Could be a total lie, right? Tony Pauline's sources could have just been lied to or be lying to him to put smoke out there, right? This is like lying season, right? Whatever. Let's pretend that that's a thing. I mean, let's consider the idea as though it is a thing. So what's cool about the Locked On Podcast Network is that there is a host for every team. So I can reach out to Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints and Christopher Carter of Locked On Steelers and ask them what their offer would be. And they sent me offers, which I'm going to share with you in a bit. It's really cool. For more of this, check out the ultimate mock draft, which will be on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast feed in the week leading up to the draft, where we all got together, did a mock draft with trades, and we all got together and did that. That's one of the coolest things that the network puts out every year, and they do it for NBA and stuff too. So go check all of that out. It's on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast feed. There'll be a live show on the Locked On NFL Draft YouTube feed as well. So how we're going to do this is we'll talk about the trades themselves first. I'll go over the offers, and then we'll do dueling mock drafts here. Let's try both of these trades, right? What better way to figure out if you like the trade or not than try a mock draft with it and see if you like where it put you on the board. So first things first, let's listen to the trade offer from Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints. Sent me this offer to move up to pick number 12.
What's going on, General Manager Luke Braun? Ross Jackson here, host of the Locked On Saints podcast. Here, a little trade proposal for you in the first round because I'm looking to move up, right? I want to get up to pick 12, get ahead of some of those wide receiver tackle needy teams, make sure that I really put myself in position to walk away with 2 starting players on rookie contracts in the first round. Here's how I'm happy to help make it happen. I'd like to hold on to pick 16. You know how it goes. I've got 16, I've got 19. I'd like to hold on to 16. I've also got pick 49. So what I'd like to do is package picks 19 and 49, 2 picks within the top 50. Let me move up, 7 spots in the first round. Make sure I get the guy that I want there. Still keeps you in range to grab the guys that you might be looking at. And I'd love to return from you as well, pick 77. So in exchange for letting me move up to 12 in that first round, I want to get you up out of the third round and into the second round. I'll drop back to the third round. I think the trade value charts give me a little bit of an edge in terms of what that is and maybe that means something to you. Maybe it doesn't, because it's really about what you're able to turn those picks into and what those players are. But my hope is that giving you 2 top 50 selections is going to let me hold on to a third rounder, or get a third rounder back rather, and be able to move up there in the first round. So once again, that is me sending over picks 19 and 49, you returning with picks 12 and 77. Let me know what you think.
Thank you so much, Ross. So for these, I use the Rich Hill trade chart to kind of decide if it's realistic, because the Rich Hill one, as opposed to the Jimmy Johnson one or the Harvard, or I think Over the Cap has their version of it, seems to be more based in history and in what teams actually tend to do. So that's the one that I see as the gold standard. And on that chart, this trade favors the Saints by about a 5th round pick. So Ross's offer, a little homerish, that's fine. But I would say I'll do this if you throw in pick 161. So what we'll do is when we do that mock draft, we'll take a look at pick 161. We'll see what's there, and we'll see if we're still happy with it. So let's hear out what the Steelers have to tell us from Christopher Carter, and then we'll talk about that one, and then we'll move on to the mock drafts.
I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. If the Steelers were to trade up to the 12th overall pick with the Minnesota Vikings, I would have to think they would give up around the range of course, their first round this year at the 20th overall pick, but also their third round pick from this year, and a third round pick for next year. Now, their third round pick this year would be at 84th overall. Third round pick next year, I'd project to be somewhere close to the same. I still see them as being around the 8, 9, 10 win range and falling into the late teens, early 20s of next year's NFL draft as well, depending on how things work out in this draft. But point being, the Steelers have a lot of issues to solve right now. They need a true corner, a CB1, a cornerback one for the room. They still need a strong safety. They need to make sure that their defensive line is shored up. They need to make sure their offensive line is shored up. They still need a quarterback of the future. If they're trading up with the Vikings at 12, I anticipate they're either going after a major defensive skill player like a Jordan Davis, or if Malik Willis has fallen off, they're going after him. But it's hard for me to see the Steelers giving up too much capital in this trade, and that's why I don't know if Luke would take this with the Vikings, as if a first and 2/3, one this year and one next year, would be enough. Because frankly, I'd imagine if you're trying to trade back, you're trying to get more than that. But I just see the Steelers not giving up too much capital this year, because I see next year being a year where they could truly be aggressive in the quarterback class if they're able to solidify several different roster spots this year.
This feels very on par. On the Rich Hill chart, it just about works out to dead even. It leaves, so 20 plus 84 for pick number 12 leaves the Steelers about 25-ish points on that trade chart short, and that's about a fourth round pick. And if you remember, the rule of thumb is a pick next year is worth the same this year, a round deferred. So a third rounder next year is a fourth rounder this year. And so that's about perfect. Third rounder next year is exactly the kicker you need to make that work out. So we get an extra third rounder in each of the next 2 years, and we just have to move down 8 spots in the draft. So now we'll fire up the actual mock draft simulator and see how these trades actually feel. Let's really play with them and get practical, get a little more hands-on with it. So let's do that. First things first, though, let me talk to you about Grambling. If you want to bet on the draft, you can do that. You can bet on who the first pick will be. Right now, Aiden Hutchinson is the odds-on favorite. You can bet on who the first tackle will be off the board, or who the first corner will be off the board. Everybody kind of knows it'll be Sauce, but maybe not, right? What if somebody gets crazy, takes Trent McDuffie? You can make some money off of that. So head on over to betonline.net. You can bet on everything. Basketball, hockey playoffs going on. You can bet on tennis or golf. You can MMA. You can even play your favorite Vegas casino games on that website. So head on over to betonline.net. Get yourself a Grambling, bet player props, or you can bet in the middle of games with their live betting apparatus, whatever it is. Just get yourself a Grambling at BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so I am firing up the mock draft simulator at the Draft Network. We'll do a 3-round draft, but we will look at what happened at 161 just to see if I had played hardball with Ross to see what we would have gotten out with it. So we'll just make that trade, see how it goes. Sitting at pick 12, Stingley is on the board, so we probably are trading past him, and yeah, he went to the Texans. So we'll go to pick 19, where we actually end up drafting here. And I'm going to be honest, I don't love the board. There's a lot of guys that I find to be interesting second rounders. There's Linderbaum, who you know by now, I'm not a huge fan of taking him in the first round, because I just don't think that really, if you want a different kind of center than Garrett Bradbury, Linderbaum ain't that guy. There are a couple interesting names at receiver, like Olave and Treylon Burks. But what I'm going to do here is I don't like this spot. I don't like being at 19, so I'm going to trade down even further. See if I can't get my third round pick back, because I gave it up in that trade to move up, right? So I managed to work out a deal with the Bills, which is pick number 19 for pick number 25. I get their third rounder, which is 89, and I have to give up a 7th rounder in return, which is 250. So a 7th for a third, and I move down in 7 or 6 spots. So not too bad, right? And at 25, Chris Olave is still there, so I'm going to take him. Look, Chris Olave to me is a guy, and for a first round receiver, my question is, look, if Justin Jefferson goes down, let's say he gets hurt for the season, right? Let's say he suffers a bad injury and he's out for the season. Does this guy become the focal point of the offense, and do you feel good about that? And with Olave, I don't know. A lot of people don't say that he can't be that. But at pick number 25, I'm not holding it to quite that high of a standard. I feel pretty good about Olave, so we'll do that. And that takes us into the second round. Look, we still have a big corner problem. What happened is Stingley was gone. I could have taken McDuffie at pick number 19, but I decided to trade down instead. I traded past McDuffie, so there wasn't a lot of first round corner talent left on the board at that point. So I need a corner really bad. Look, Patrick Peterson, Cameron Dantzler, you can limp through that for a season if you don't end up with anything. It makes it so that you can afford to do something like take a Chris Olave or just like trade down in general and not have to take Derek Stingley. But we need a corner. So I am going to do something kind of weird in this second round. First things first, I am taking Tariq Woolen out of UTSA. Tariq Woolen seems to have all the kind of the difficult to teach stuff. He's got a good hip transition. He's fast, he's big, he's long. He's got a lot of kind of what you want from he's 6'4" and he's leggy and he's got that outside corner kind of prototypical look. He just doesn't have a lot of recognition ability, and it seems like he's a little raw, and it seems like he's not the kind of guy that's going to be able to play year one. Again, like we said, we could limp through it. If this were the guy, we could do it. So I'm going to take him. And then at pick number 49, so I'm going 46, 49. This is now the second rounder we got from the Saints. I'm going to double dip, and I'm going to also take Roger McCreary, who is a different sort of guy. He seems a lot more polished, and I actually think I like him better than Woolen as a prospect. But I also think you can get him a little later because he's 5'11", so teams are going to be just that much less excited about him. He doesn't have the size and stuff, and the athletic traits they're fine, but they're not exciting like they are with Woolen. But he's a little bit more polished and ready out of the box. So I feel like I now have a lot of depth in that corner group. I've got Peterson, Dantzler, and a crap ton of competition for Dantzler, a crap ton of competition for somebody like Chandon Sullivan. Roger McCreary can play inside or outside just because he's 5'11". That doesn't mean I'm making him a nickel corner. Some teams might think that way. Zimmer thought that way. I always disagreed with him on that, so maybe we can move past that. But I'm double dipping on corner here with those second rounders, and I feel like what it allows us to do is sort of diversify in that way. Very Wall Street, right? We're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We're diversifying our assets. And instead of picking one Derek Stingley, and if Stingley just never regains the form he had in 2019, you're just sort of out of luck. We now have two guys. And look, if Tariq Woolen doesn't make it, you got Roger McCreary to fall back on, and you need both of those guys to not make it for this to really bite you in the butt. That is going to be less likely than, it's less likely for two guys to bust out than it is for one guy to bust out, even if those two guys are a lower draft pick. That's why this always kind of favors the trade down team in all the trade charts, and especially like the Harvard one and the ones that go more off of like historical, how these picks turn out rather than what teams actually rather than the trades teams actually make. That brings us to pick number 89, which is what we got for the Bills. This is basically what we got. You can think of it for trading for trading Trent McDuffie for these two corners. Instead of getting a Trent McDuffie that we can probably just plug and play start, we kind of have two corners that we can't really do that with. And for whatever the difference is in value between those two things, I'm taking Spencer Burford, an interior lineman, guard tackle, I guess, from UTSA. We're doubling up on Utah, the University of Texas, San Antonio. So that's weird, I guess. Shout out David Morgan. But Spencer Burford, I kind of like this dude. On at least a cursory glance, part of why he's going to fall, I think, further is that he's only 295, but he's got really long arms, and he's got really good quick feet, and he's a very good zone fit. He's not very good mechanically, but a lot of the mechanical issues that he has to do with like being a tackle and having to, have really efficient movements and stuff in pass pro and efficient kick slides and all that stuff. You don't have to do as much as at guard, and I think he might actually do better at guard, even though he doesn't have like a guard's build. I think he might be able, like guard technically might be easier to teach him, and that might be a better path forward for him. But you could try him at both spots, have a versatile backup if you don't, if you can't decide or whatever. There's a lot of different directions you can go with that. So I give that to the O-line coach and say, all right, good luck. You've got a toolsy dude that you can kind of teach whatever to, but pick a path and see what you want to do, right? So we're taking Spencer Burford. Skipping ahead to pick 161, we also pick at 156, so we kind of have two fifth-round picks if we play hardball with Ross a little bit. So whatever you do there, I don't know. There's Danny Gray. He's one of my favorites. There's some interesting linebacker prospects, some interesting edge. I don't know. It seems like a good place to be. The deal with playing hardball, though, is if you say, if you are trying to eke something out, like, remember, these are people and you're kind of negotiating with people and you're trying to maintain relationships with people. If you negotiate too hard, you might ruin the deal entirely. If you say, all right, I'll take that. I need an extra fifth, though. And even if you in your mind say, look, if they get really, really mad about this, I'll give it up and that's okay. I'll still do the deal. They might not know that. And they might say, if you want a fifth round pick, I'm not interested in the deal anymore. Hang up, and then nothing happens. That can happen in negotiations. So it's a thing to be aware of. But I think the talent at 161 seems like it's going to still be there. It seems like a fairly deep draft in lieu of being a top heavy one. So I think it's probably worth risking the deal entirely to see if you can't get all your right value, especially in a draft like this. I love trading down this year. Really, really, really love trading down this year. So look, we got a wideout, we got a guard, we got a couple of corners. I don't mind the trade down with the Saints. I think it's really hard to give up, but you could have had Derek Stingley, who's a prospect I'm just in love with. So it's a tougher pill to swallow because of that, but this does feel like a more responsible move. So yeah, Ross, give me the fifth rounder and you got yourself a deal. Let's move on to the Steelers one, but first things first, let me tell you about Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed, durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Also, something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what happens. So give them a try. If you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. Simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use promo code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, all one word, for their best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews. Let me also talk to you about your car. Rock Auto is going to help you get your car in order. Look, don't put off maintenance because it looks too expensive. I know it's like, man, I don't know what this noise is, and it could run me hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars, and that's really scary. Let Rock Auto help you with that. Whatever part your car ends up needing, go to Rock Auto, enter your make, your year, and your model. You might be able to get the same part, even from the same manufacturer that your mechanic would use. It just delivered directly to your door. And why pay what they're going to charge you, which could be 30, 50, even 100% more, because they know that you don't know how much this crap costs. So head on over to rockauto.com, get a fair price for the dang thing, and then take it to your mechanic and see if they'll just let you install the part for the labor. Or if you're a do-it-yourself type, you're a gearhead, they've got everything under the sun. They got gaskets and whatever other stuff, tubes and pipes and whatever. So head on over. They even have safety supplies, like a tire kit or whatever, or like an ice scraper that you need. We all know we need that in Minnesota, right? So head on over to rockauto.com. Whatever you buy, make sure you let them know that Locked On sent you in the How You Heard About Us section at checkout. Because if you don't, the rabbits will be forced to forge their passports and free the country. Rock Auto, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Let's move on to the picks we got from the Steelers. We're trading down to a similar range here. We traded to 19 once into 20 once, but it's different offers from the different teams, which I think is really interesting. So Pittsburgh gave us 20 and 84 and a third rounder next year for pick number 12 straight up. So we're trading down 8 spots. We pick at number 20. Again, Trent McDuffie on the board, about the same range. This time, let's take him and see how we feel, right? So whatever you feel the difference is between Derek Stingley and Trent McDuffie. And look, if you ask Dane Brugler, we got the better corner here. So you might think that that's a negative difference, if that makes sense. You might think we might have ended up getting a better player, which was great, right? That's awesome if we did that. But whatever the difference between Trent McDuffie and Derek Stingley is, that's our cost. That's what we paid. And what we get is an extra third rounder, essentially. And then we get a third rounder next year. Keep that in mind. But we're still picking normally at 46. I'm going to round out the secondary at that pick somebody that I really like here in the second round, which is Jalen Peter, safety out of Baylor. He's a very versatile guy. He's a very downhill type safety that can really do those inserts into the run fits and stuff, and really those rolling coverage things that the Fangio style defenses like to do. I think he fits really well. So I really like this. And then moving on to pick number 77. So now we have 2 third rounders. We're here in the third round. I kind of like a tight end here. There's a lot of tight ends on the board, but for a tight end, like this is a Tyler Conklin replacement, right? Because we have Irv Smith. He's the tight end one. So what I want is a versatile tight end that can do a lot of things. Because this guy's only going to be on the field in 12 personnel. That's a lot of run plays in that one, but I want to be able to pass out of that formation as well. That's been so good for Kirk Cousins over the years. So I want a versatile tight end. So that takes out the Isaiah Likeleys, who, I mean, the Draft Network has Isaiah Likely 69th on their board. I don't think I would draft him at all. I just don't think that I've talked about it in the past. So go listen to one of the old ones with 3 prospects of the day. I talked about him then. There's a lot of those kind of move tight ends that are like, look, they're not run blockers, but here they are. Look at how good they are at running routes. I'm not interested in that. I like Cade Otton, who is very much a jack of all trades and a master of none. He's very average at a lot of things, and I will take average at a lot of things at this position. For tight end too, I love it, and I'm super comfortable spending a third round pick on a guy who just will be a rotational player and plug right in and just be able to play like 30% of snaps. We absolutely love it. So I could take Cole Strange here at pick number 84. This is now the pick that I got. So the cost was not getting Stingley and getting McDuffie instead. The benefit could be getting Cole Strange. I picked him in like every one of these though. So I'm going to go a different direction with it. I don't really want to mess with Ed Ingram. There's some off field there that I'm like super uncomfortable with. I don't mind the idea of like a Calvin Austin who's 5'8" and he's shifty and he's got like, I don't know, Darren Sproles energy. Maybe I'm being heightist by saying that. But I like the idea. Somebody asked me in a previous Twitter Tuesday about like, what do you want in a wide receiver? And a lot of times what I want is that stupid shifty slot guy that's really agile and that little like impossible to tackle twerp that kind of helps build out your screen game and stuff and helps build out your like your kind of weird after catch things. And then you can send Thielen and Osborne and Justin Jefferson down the field and have them do downfield concepts while you've got this stupidest little outlet dude that's 5'8". And I kind of like Calvin Austin because of it. So I'm going to take Calvin Austin here. And what we ended up doing was rounding out the secondary in the same way, you know, and then rounding out the pass catching group. I took a couple of pass catchers, took a couple of secondary guys. And again, I feel very diversified. I don't necessarily feel like that's better or worse than staying put, taking Stingley, and just not having that extra third rounder. I feel like it's very similar. I feel like we got a very fair deal, especially from Pittsburgh. I think that was proper value. And that extra 2023 third, look, Chris Carter said that he was really thinking they would be 8, 9, 10 team. Sorry, Chris, I'm not as high on those Steelers as you are. I kind of feel like that third rounder could end up being a little higher, and then we actually get some surplus value out of it. So we're basically rooting against the Steelers next year. That's fine. And then we get a more diversified, you know, if somebody super busts out, if you get a Jeff Gladney situation where it's just like some unforeseen thing comes in, you totally didn't know about it at draft time, and it totally ruins the guy, and you have to release him after 1 year. That situation, you're now a little more guarded against. And that's strategically, I think, the advantage of doing mock drafts like this. So I don't hate trading down here. I like trading down in this draft to get, I really like having more depth. I think my general kind of, there's only so many guys that I as one person can look at is going to put me behind the 8 ball as compared to a team that's got a whole, a whole like branch of their front office that's able to get better evaluations than I personally can, like on my own, just sort of researching what other people did. It seems like this draft has a lot more depth than I am familiar with. And so for that reason, I like trading down a lot. So I like these offers. Give me a 5th from Ross and I'll take Chris's as he offered it. And we'll do this. So tomorrow, hopefully I'll do the wide receiver thing I've been promising all week. If not, maybe, I don't know, we'll talk about edge rushers or something. We'll talk about something tomorrow. I'll see you then. In the meantime, make sure you check out that Locked On NFL Draft podcast thing. Check out Locked On Minnesota Sports with Ron Johnson, the Ron Johnson Show, and they've got a really cool lineup going on over there. Check all that stuff out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.